My husband started doing it with me when he thought I was asleep, so I pretended to be unresponsive, and he kept on doing it. Now what? I, 31F, was in bed with my husband, 32M, last night, and I was almost asleep when he started doing it with me. I was pretty uninterested and tired, so I didn't really react or make any sound. I don't have a problem smashing late at night and don't require verbal asking of permission. However, it started feeling really odd after the 2-minute mark when he was still going, and I hadn't made a single sound. I sort of dissociated, thinking how weird it was, and eventually just told him to stop and went to the bathroom. I'm not a man, obviously, but I feel like I probably wouldn't be into smashing with someone who wasn't into it or remotely receptive. Is this common with men? I explained that it felt weird when I came back to bed, and all he said was, "Oh, sorry. How do I go about dealing with this? It seems so bizarre." Edit. I was in therapy a few months ago after having extreme anxiety when we'd smash because I got triggered by something and couldn't bring myself to say no for some reason. He knows about this, so it feels somewhat relevant that he kept going anyway without stopping to ask if I was okay. Edit. I made it crystal clear I was unhappy with what happened before I left the bedroom and wasn't remotely happy about it. My parting words were, "That was weird. I'm a human being, not a freaking object." What the hell was that? Commenter. I usually just lurk, but I've had this happen in 2 previous relationships, both with long-term partners. The first began when I was really inexperienced and didn't know whether it was normal or not. That relationship was abusive in many ways, like controlling, manipulative, emotional, and had a really unhealthy power dynamic. I didn't realize until very late and left the relationship. He ticked all the narc boxes. Not sure if this feels familiar at all, but he would literally start while I was asleep. The second was similar, although not abusive, or at least I wouldn't call it that anyway. He also seemed to think consent was granted. I was in kind of a dark place, though, and probably rebounded with him. I did actually explain to him that I felt really uncomfortable with him just doing it with me while I was semi-asleep or just not into it and that it felt non-consensual. He later tried to pressure me into other things I wasn't comfortable with, and I ended the relationship for various reasons, that being one. Again, he wasn't the nicest guy, and I feel like that might be a pattern, to be honest. I just wanted to say I've had this same thing with 2 guys, and your feeling that this is not okay is totally valid. Talk to him about it, but also maybe spend some time thinking about the rest of the relationship. Do you feel taken for granted in other ways? How does he treat you otherwise? Op. I've been saying for a while I feel taken for granted and unappreciated. He didn't even get me a card for Mother's Day. Update 1. So, he came home and said he wanted to find a way to resolve the situation. I asked him what the situation was, and he said he didn't know, a common theme in all his answers. I explained, frustratedly, that I felt for months that I'm putting more into the relationship than him and only receiving the bare minimum. He cut me off multiple times, nitpicking random points, then eventually started raising his voice like always. I told him not to, and he stormed out of the room. He eventually stormed back in and said it was BS and that it's pretty freaking rich to say he's doing the bare minimum. Note, he didn't get me a Mother's Day card, didn't comfort me when I was upset the other day, and I've been asking for small gestures like picking a flower off a tree on his way home for months, and I still haven't gotten one. In response, I said it feels a bit rich to be so defensive and focus on one specific detail of a point I'd barely started making when I've been searching for support on Reddit all day while a bunch of strangers dissect whether I got raped or not. He just lost his mind and started yelling at me about how I can go on Reddit with my little keyboard warriors and he doesn't give a freak because I said he does the bare minimum. Then he slammed the door and turned all the lights off outside, so I guess he's sleeping on the couch. Update 2. He just got home. He gave me flowers he'd picked off a tree and said he was sorry for the way he dealt with his anger. We don't have time to talk right now because the kids are destroying the house, so I guess I'll post another update when they're asleep and we've spoken. I'm not stupid though. Some flowers and a 1-second apology are the bare minimum. Edit. The kids went to bed, and he sat on the couch watching YouTube videos for 3 hours and didn't say a word to me. Then he came into the bedroom and said, "I'm going to bed." I told him I'm done planning the vow renewal ceremony I've been planning entirely by myself for months, that he especially wanted, and if he cares so much, he can do it all himself. He won't, I know he won't. Then I left the room, and he closed the door and went to bed. That's it, no surprises, just the bare freaking minimum. Update 3. I feel like a blindfold has been ripped off my eyes, and I'm suddenly seeing all these details of prior events, and I'm just reeling. Like one time, I think he might actually have semi-raped me when he had complete emotional leverage over me, and he knew it, and I felt like I literally couldn't say no, and he finished inside without asking and I just burst into tears afterwards. I ended up with a chemical pregnancy and it was awful. I could go on and on, I'm freaking shell-shocked right now. Someone on here sent me a link to an e-book about abuse, and there were so many things in it describing his behavior. I just feel like a freaking idiot. The time he pinned me to the floor by my shoulders and screamed in my face while our baby was watching. The time he called me a fat BTCH postpartum. The time I found out while pregnant that he cheated on me prior and multiple times. I could just go on. I'll probably be deleting my account in the morning, I just can't take it anymore. Thanks for the advice. Don't be a freaking idiot like me.